Hi, this is Josh Marshall from TPM Media. It's Thursday, June 12, 2008. So we're in a cab right below Union Square in Lower Manhattan, and we're going to a book event with Matthew Yglesias, who's got a new book called Heads in the Sand, and I am the moderator of the event. So we're going to go there, we're going to do the book event, and then we're going to talk to Matt about U.S. foreign policy.
This book, Heads in the Sand, is a critical analysis of the Democratic Party's failure to produce a coherent alternative to the Bush foreign policy.
We're here with Matthew Yglesias, and we're talking about his new book, Heads in the Sand. What is this book about?
The book is about the sort of foreign policy failures we've seen over the past, 7, 8 years from the Bush administration.
It's a lot of territory to
and,
cover.
and more specifically about the sort of failures of the Democratic Party, the inability to take political advantage of the kind of problems, the inability to stop these things, and the inability thus far to come up with a really coherent, compelling alternative.
Now, one of the things you talk about is the number of quote-unquote liberal hawks in the lead up to the war. These are people who are Democratic foreign policy advisors, in some cases Democratic politicians, who maybe weren't exactly on the same page with President Bush, but gave some level of support to the Iraq War and enabled President Bush. And a lot of these people are still, they're still at the Brookings Institution. They still hold positions of power and influence. What is your critique of the liberal hawks? What's the problem with that?
Well, for one thing, I don't want to say, as some people do, that, we need to just sort of run out of town everyone who's ever been wrong about something. But you do see a lot of people who, they were wrong about Iraq and sort of continue to be wrong about many things going forward. And you see, to some extent, just a level of opportunism and a kind of false groping toward the center where, as the rightward pole gets defined in a more and more lunatic way, they kind of veer off that way. And you also see some people who just, in fact, have pretty small disagreements with neoconservatives about foreign policy, and just a kind of an egomaniacal sort of, if I was doing this, it would work out fine. It's all kind of Doug Feit's fault.
Who are some of these people? Who are we talking about? What are the names of these people?
Well, I think in the sort of Michael O'Hanlon at the Brookings Institution, in that universe, I think you've also seen a lot of it in the press. Peter Beinart has moved away from some of these positions.
He's a former editor of the New Republic.
Right, but was definitely espousing them for a while. Right. Tom Friedman is extremely influential still, as is Richard Cohen. So I think you see a lot of that. And then, of course, in politicians, you had tons and tons of people at least voting for the war. I think most elected officials, except for Joe Lieberman, have obviously moved toward a more sensible posture.
Right. Or John McCain, I guess.
Right. Yes.
Right. So a lot of people who are going to be watching this show, people who read blogs, have a lot of frustration going through from 9/11 up to the present, that you have President Bush, whether it's going into Iraq, taking this very aggressive stance towards Iran, perhaps to North Korea, and Democrats are never able to. They're always kind of hedging. They're saying, well, we kind of agree, but we kind of disagree, and they really lament that Democrats either don't have the guts or the language to oppose these policies in a more clear-cut way. What do you propose in your book?
Well, I do think that part of this is just a question of self-confidence. That, even Democrats have lost on national security issues, a lot over the decades. And so you can understand why that makes people timid. But the timidity is actually a problem. That, voters oftentimes are looking for signals, looking for heuristics. And when you come out and you sound defensive, or you sound hesitant, or you sound like you think maybe you're wrong, that comes through to people in some ways more than the ideas themselves.
So signaling weakness not so much by your policies, but the way you enunciate them and your confidence in them.
Well, and also by a sort of, if you're always bending over backwards to say, well, there's something to what he's saying, but he's not quite right, that makes it sound like, well, there's something to what he's saying.
Right.
And the time has come, I think, to say that, the emperor has no clothes here, that these ideas they're not tough, they're not strong, they've been preposterous failures. And, we can talk like that in this day and age, whatever the sort of political realities may have been in 2002.
Right. Now we just a week or so ago had Barack Obama clinching the Democratic nomination. We now know what the general election is going to be about. From the work you've done in this book, you're thinking about foreign policy. what is your, what do you, not what you think the result of the election necessarily is going to be, but do you think that the debate about foreign policy in the next 4 months is going to be a little more even with Barack Obama at least making an argument that is coherent and opposes John McCain, or is it going to be more like what you described in this book?
Well, you know, I'm hoping that this should really clarify things, that John McCain seems to have reached the view that despite the unpopularity of the war, that foreign policy is his strong card. Obama ran early in the primaries very strong on having been against the war from the beginning. He's taken some sort of envelope-pushing stances. I think both campaigns think they can win on this subject. So we'll see, you know, if not a sort of enlightened, you know, academic-style debate, at least a fearsome fight between, you know, two camps that really disagree, both about what the public wants and about where the country should go.
Okay. Matt Yglesias, thank you for giving us a little of your time. And this is the book. You can, you know, pick it up anywhere, any good bookstore or Amazon.com or anything like that. And it's a good read. Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Absolutely.